has been deferred due to the unprecedented outbreak of COVID-19 pandemic. The Thabo Mbeki Foundation, however, is involved in the organization and preparations of the Africa and African Diaspora conference launch, which will take place today. Let's take you there. Let's listen in to the former president, Thabo Mbeki.
Well, let me start by saying a happy Africa Day to everybody. Because today, indeed, as we do this launch, we do it, I think, quite correctly on Africa Day. And so, indeed, a happy Africa Day to everybody. But I must also say congratulations and thanks to the initiators of this conference, the Africa and Africa Diaspora Conference. I think it is very correct and it's very timely. And very correct that we tie it to the 75th anniversary of the 5th Pan-African Conference, which, as all of us know, it was held in 1945. I think it is very correct that we take this initiative, which involves Africa and African diaspora, on the occasion of that 75th anniversary of that 5th Pan-African Conference, because it is obvious that, from that conference there was a direct line of march to the independence of the colonized countries of Africa and the colonized countries of the Caribbean. So you can see very clearly that what came out of 1945 in that 5th Pan-African Conference resulted in the independence of the African countries and the independence of countries of the African diaspora, particularly, specifically the Caribbean. So I'm saying that indeed I'm very glad that the initiators of the conference have tied it to that 5th Pan-African Conference. I think in that connection, we must also say that I think it is clear that liberation of the African countries, the Caribbean countries, obviously had an impact in terms even of the situation, certainly the consciousness and the thinking of the African diaspora in the United States. Because as you can see, from the very beginning of these Pan-African conferences, that's from 1900, the African Americans played a very important role in the conferences, as they did even in the 1945 conference. So I'm saying that when we say 1945, it's not only with relation to Africa and the Caribbean, but it's also relative to the African diaspora as a whole. And indeed, there are many connections. You will recall, for instance, that the initiator of the very first Pan-African Conference in 1900, Henry Sylvester Williams, ended up working as a lawyer in South Africa, in Cape Town, because he wanted to participate in mobilizing the black oppressed in South Africa as a continuation of the Pan-African Conference. And many of the people were Padmo and others were active in the United States, ended up on the continent. That included even W.E.B. Du Bois, as you recall, even passed away in Ghana. So I'm saying the connection between Africa and the African diaspora, all of it, is indeed been a very important part of this entire process. Now we see we meet correctly. We will meet. It's this Africa and the African diaspora, taking our inspiration from 1945. And you'll recall that 1945, that 5th Pan-African Conference, you recall, it adopted the document, important document, which was titled Challenge to the Colonial Powers. And it said, if you can read a little bit from that document, it said, we're determined to be free. We want education. We want the right to earn a decent living, the right to express our thoughts and emotions, to adopt and create forms of beauty. We are unwilling to starve any longer while doing the world's drudgery in order to support by our poverty and ignorance a false aristocracy and a discredited imperialism. That was a message that came out of the 1945 conference. As we prepare for this new conference, the Africa Diaspora Conference, obviously we must say, how far have we moved in terms of achieving these objectives which were stated in 1945? But I think even perhaps, in a sense, more challenging is I think we need to recall even the very first Pan-African Conference in 1900, which said, and I am going to read it, the very, very first paragraph of a very famous statement which was called "To the Nations of the World." And it said, in the metropolis of the modern world, in this, the closing year of the 19th century, there has been assembled a congress of men and women of African blood to deliberate solemnly upon the present situation and outlook of the darker races of mankind. And then this very famous sentence, it said, the problem of the 20th century is the problem of the color line. The question as to how far differences of race, which show themselves chiefly in the color of the skin and the texture of the hair, will hereafter be made the basis of denying to over half the world the right of sharing to utmost ability the opportunities and privileges of modern civilization. And this is 120 years ago. The problem of he said the problem of the 20th century is the problem of the color line. I think we meet now, we prepare to meet as Africa and the African diaspora because for us, as Africans and the African diaspora, it's clear that even in the 21st century, the problem of the color line still remains. So again, I'm saying, thank you very much for the initiative that everybody has taken to convene all of this. And I think as we do all our work to prepare for the convening of the conference next year, one of the things we need to attend to is the ways and means and mechanisms by which we will act together. The challenges of Africa and the African diaspora are common to all of us. And in order to overcome them, it's not only a matter of identifying what the problem is and what the answer is, but it's also answering the question, the ways and means, the collective, the strength that we're able to develop as Africans and Africans and the African diaspora to address those challenges, which I'm saying were already addressed and identified in the very, very first Pan-African Conference in 1900, repeated in the fifth one in 1945. And we're going to meet now, but this time, out of the process must come clear directions about the resolution of these matters and ensuring that we're able to move forward as Africa and the African diaspora to ensure that these matters are addressed. But thank you very much to the initiators, and indeed a happy Africa.
We've been all around the country talking to real South Africans about saving money